you for joining us for this live tasting. And thank you, Deborah and Rosemary, to welcome us on the estate. You see behind me, the background is a virtual background, of course. It's the vineyard of Mas Gabriel. And Deborah, hello.
Hello, hi everybody.
Deborah is on the estate, but on the office. Looks very.
I am in the office, yes, for internet reasons. If I tried to go outside, you wouldn't hear me very well. So I'm in my office with a few bottles and all my papers, where I do spend quite a lot of time, but I'm also spend lots of time in the lovely vineyard as well. So.
Okay, and we have Rosemary. Hello, Rosemary.
Hello.
So Rosemary.
I'm in London.
From London. Okay.
I'm in London.
Okay. And Rosemary is a master of wine and has written several books about Languedoc and other wine regions, and knows very well the area of where Mas Gabriel is, right?
Yes, well, we have a maison secondaire in the next village, so I could almost wave to Deborah from our terrace.
Okay.
You can see the church tower of Caux from our terrace.
Excellent.
So we're very close neighbours.
Okay, so maybe you can start, Deborah, by explaining to people who know you or who don't know you very well. I see Agnès. Hello, Agnès, as well, who is one of our loyal wine funder. I don't know if you have the wine with you.
No.
You have the wine with you? No.
No, I don't have the wine.
Sharing.
No, I'm sorry. I just, yeah, you know, it was too late to order the kit, so.
Okay.
Okay, but have some wine.
Excellent. 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 Maybe Deborah, you can explain when the estate was created, where you come from, and what was your idea when you started the estate?
Yep, of course. So Mas Gabriel Small Wine Domain is basically myself and my husband Peter, who may pop by later to say hello. He's had a hitch with a piece of machinery, which is trying to repair at the moment. And we used to live and work in London, and right back in 2002 we really had enough of life there and decided that we had a dream and a plan to come and live in the Languedoc and to make wine. It's a very long story, so you have to have a short version which involved traveling around the world and learning how to make wine in New Zealand, but always with the plan to come back to France, to Europe, to the Languedoc, to live and to work and start a new life. So we came in 2004 and we looked all over a very wide area for some vines, and finally in 2006 found this beautiful vineyard in the village of Caux in the Languedoc in the Hérault Valley. And so we bought 6 hectares approximately. In fact, today we've got 6.5. And we have been making wine and living here and enjoying it, well, working very hard and having ups and downs, but lately enjoying it a lot since 2006.
I'm sharing just so people can locate where we are. Okay. So
yeah.
Here you can see Montpellier in the south of France.
Yeah. And if you want to come down to the AOC Languedoc Pézenas.
Yeah, where the mouse is.
There, where we are, and we are in that appellation. It doesn't show our actual village, but Pézenas is a beautiful medieval town 5 minutes away. And so our village is situated in the pink area, AOC Languedoc Pézenas, with a really beautiful terroir for growing our vines. Oh, there we go. And that's all the villages within the Pézenas appellation. You see Caux there, and there we are, right in the heart of that appellation.
And here are vignerons, here.
Yeah, and here we are in a parcel of old vines of Carignan Noir. One of our wines is called the Three Terraces, and that's actually the lowest of the three terraces. You can just see a bank of trees, and then there's another vineyard above that, and yet another one above that. So it's our main block of red vines there. A couple of
that's where the name Trois Terrasses comes from.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Okay. So this is for the estate. What about the project that you ran on wine funding? What was your objective?
Yeah, so
Mas Gabriel had a campaign last year on wine funding, which was very successful. We exceeded the target. And just you can explain to us again what was the objective to finance?
Yeah, so the project was to plant some of the land. We already owned the land, and over the years, mostly we've got lots of old vines, but then we have replanted some parts of the vineyard as well. So we had one block of half a hectare and another tiny field of a quarter of a hectare within that main parcel behind Maxime on the screen there, and kind of over in the other direction. We'll see it later. And when we've replanted, we like to plant with vines which are called selection massal or massal selection, which basically means they're non-cloned vines. You get much greater variety of flavors and complexity in your wines, and it's also strongly thought that these massal selection vines are much more resistant to diseases of the vines themselves, and also sort of fungal diseases, which such as mildew, for example. But essentially, to produce the best wine possible, that was important to us. Now, these vines.
It's quite interesting, the massal selection, because what we learned in agricultural school and in viticulture is for many years it was recommended to use clonal selection. Yeah. All the vines are identical, so we have a consistent yield, and it's all predictable, and it was in theory a great idea because it's easier to manage in the vineyard. But the downside of it is that you lose diversity. Because if all the vines are exactly identical, there's no diversity, and the vines are exactly the same. When there's a disease coming, he sees all the vineyard as identical, so it will spread very easily. With massal selection, because all the individual vines are a little bit different. Some of them might have a different resistance to the disease, and also they will have a different way of maturing the grape a little bit, so it will bring also complexity.
Absolutely. Sorry.
What do you think, Rosemary, about massal selection?
I think what you say is very true. I mean, it does make for more, I don't know a lot about it technically, but it makes certainly for more interesting vines. The question I was wondering was whether the grafting was the omega graft or the greffe anglaise, because there's been a lot of discussion about, vine trunk disease and might be caused by mechanical grafting. So with the massal selection, was it hand grafted or was it sort of done with a machine? Do you know?
Oh, I think at Bevion, I'm sure they do it by hand.
So the greffe on the point of
the When they cut the little V and then they just put the bud on, and then it has to, I mean, it might be a mechanical element. I suspect that
here we can see
largely done by hand. So if you see, the red
covered up.
Those are the vines which we purchased, or some of them. And you've got a long sort of woody bit, which is the root stock, and then the roots at the end. And then the red stuff is wax. And so right at the tip, I don't know if it's quite hard to see, but there's a little tiny matchstick size piece, and that's the fruiting wood. That's grafted onto the rootstock. And the fruiting wood, what, as Max was saying, selection massal means is that it's selected from lots and lots of different vines. It has lots of different mothers or parents, if you like, so much bigger genetic pool, which makes them more resistant, and also adds a lot more complexity, or gives a lot more complexity to the wines. So those are the vines, or some of the vines, so very few of the vines which we purchased with the project.
And then you plant it?
Yes. So in fact, not the by hand planting, that was to hand plant some missing ones. But in the previous picture with the big tractor, it's gone. Okay, the previous screen, that one, the big tractor, which is not our tractor, that's a guy that came, and behind it you can just see a guy sitting with a table in front of him, and on that table are bundles of the vines. And so that machine was astonishing. It drilled a hole, the people put the vines one by one into a wheel which turned, planted the vines, and then watered. There was a big tank of water on the front of the tractor, and then closed up the hole. And what the fantastic benefit of doing this is that the vines you're seeing there, you can see the roots. So that's called planting with long roots, and the vines get off to a much, much better start. If you plant by hand, you really have to cut the roots very short to about 1 centimetre. And you probably need to add a year into the sort of the growth cycle of the vines before they start to give you a crop. So we planted, it's the first time we planted like that actually, but it's incredibly successful. And so that was a couple of months after the planting. The planting was in March last year. And there we have the baby vines just a few weeks later in 2019, once they'd started growing.
You look very happy.
They do. And then the next big job last year was to put in all the wooden posts, the piquets, which are the tutors. So the other nice thing we like to do is we're training these vines on gobelet in French, which is like bush vines. So there's no trellising, no wires, but it's very good to put the wooden post in the first year while the soil's still soft. And then it just gives them a bit of extra support if it's very windy, for example. So as well as planting about 3,500 vines, Peter, and then Peter's driving the tractor there, and that's Hugo who works with us, then knocked in 3,500 posts.
Wow.
And then this year we've been very busy, kept us very busy during the lockdown, doing lots of weeding by hand with a hose. And then we finished pruning. Yeah, there we are on the bottom there. There we are, weeding. And then we pruned, and then what you're seeing in the other pictures is this year's growth. And they've grown fantastically well. We've had a lot of rain. And unfortunately, I didn't quite get another picture, but you'll see that middle picture there, there's a lovely shoot, and that's going to form the trunk. That's now attached to the post with a little ribbon or a string thing. And that is going to be the new trunk. And it's just grown phenomenally well. And we think partly thanks to the long roots, planting with long roots. Also fantastic vines from a very good vine nursery in Selection Massal. Our soil was well prepared, and we've had plenty of rain. So it's been a very happy progress so far.
Yeah, they look very healthy. It looks like
yeah, they're fantastic actually. We're really thrilled.
You give them a lot of care and love.
We do.
Very happy.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And of course, the two varieties, which I didn't mention, but we've got Sanso in the bigger parcel there, the big picture. That's Sanso, and then in the other tiny block, it's Grenache Noir, black Grenache.
Excellent. Yeah. So maybe we should start to taste some of the wines.
Yes.
What about moving to the white wine?
Yeah. So shall I just tell you a little bit about that, and then maybe Rosemary can talk us through it as well. So the first one, the Champ des Bleuets, is from 2019, and it's all our wines are a blend of 2 or 3 varieties, but there's always one major variety, and here it's Vermentino, with a little bit of Grenache Gris and Grenache Blanc. So it's from last year's harvest. Our harvest is 100% hand-picked, and in fact, Rosemary was there on the famous day of the Vermentino harvest last year.
I was indeed, yes. You were very excited because you got a crop.
It was an amazing crop. It was a really beautiful day's picking.
Yeah,
and I should just quickly mention one more thing on the winemaking, is that about 1/3 of the wine was fermented and aged for a little while in an acacia barrels.
What do you consider the advantage of acacia is as opposed to oak?
Well, acacia is much more gentle on the white wines. It's much more gentle because I'm sort of allergic to white wines.
This doesn't say aged in wood at all.
No, at all. But it does say
rounded texture on the palate.
Yes.
It does. It does not say I've been in a barrel at all.
Exactly. I mean, the barrels had done a couple of wines already, so they weren't brand new. But even when they're new, we find that the acacia barrels don't mark the wine in the way that new oak can. On the other hand, adds to the complexity, allows, you get that roundness from the barrel ferment, and then some lovely aromas. It enhances floral notes and brings out some honeyed notes, for example.
Are you testing Rosemary for the
Absolutely, yes.
For the first time? Are you tasting it for the first time?
I'm tasting this vintage for the first time, but I've tried the wine before. No, I think it's doing very well. It's very Vermentino. It's nice ripeness to it. well, that's sort of what the French, in France, you call a joli amer on the finish. You know, that's like sort of bitterness that gives it a bit of focus and structure. And lovely fruit, very rounded. What would the aging potential be, do you think, Deborah?
Well, I think we've got probably 4 or 5 years there.
Yes, just wondering curiously, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, we did have a bottle of Chantilly Bleu 2016 the other day, which had aged really well. It was a bit higher in alcohol, but I think...
Because what's the alcohol level of this one?
Well, it's lower this year, which I prefer, actually. It's 13.5.
Oh, yes, that's nice.
The first couple of years, when the vines were younger, the yields were very small, and the Grenache Gris particularly got very... has a
what was the first vintage of this wine?
It was 2014.
Oh, right, yeah.
What's nice that it's there's no problem with I think keeping it for a few years, because it's got quite a good body, strong body, but also a good acidity. And this will preserve the wine for many years. I mean, there's no problem. It's great to have in the south of France to manage to keep with the sun that you have in the south of France.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. People, they do. The white wines of the south of France are so underappreciated. I think they've all got a fantastic potential. There's some great white wines to be discovered. This is an example.
And you, in terms of white wines, you are also producing another cuvée,
yes,
which is called le Clos
de Papillon. Clos de Papillon, yeah.
And what varieties do you have in there?
That is, the main variety there is white Carignan, Carignan Blanc, which is actually very rare. And we, unfortunately, that one got a little bit hit by the heat wave last year. So we didn't produce much, only about 1,200 bottles. But the characteristics of white Carignan, similar to black Carignan, has fantastic acidity and freshness. And great minerality. So when you taste our two white wines side by side, this one has got that lovely roundness in the mouth and a bit of weight. The Carignan Blanc is much more steely and mineral, and quite a contrast, actually. So because last year, as some of you know, we only produced, sorry, not last year, in 2018, we were only able to produce one white wine, Le Blanc, which some of you would have had as your wine funding wines. Because with that in 2018 was the year of horrendous mildew, and unfortunately we lost a lot of our crop. So we just gathered together everything we could find in terms of the whites and made a one-off called Le Blanc, only about 1,000 bottles. So it's very nice this year to have the two cuvées again.
Rosemary, have you tasted the Carignan Blanc? Have you already tasted in other?
Yes, I have. It's one of my. It's actually one of my favourite whites from, our local area of the Languedoc, because I think I think Carignan Blanc, like Carignan Noir, is one of those decried, underrated grape varieties that needs to have its reputation reassessed, and I think Deborah and Peter are helping to achieve that.
Definitely, yeah, because Carignan has a bad reputation. Has had a bad reputation.
Did once upon a time.
It used to have a bad reputation because it was used to produce wines heavy in alcohol and in tannins and not very elegant. But now the old vines of Carignan, when they are with a low yield and when the stalk is very ripe, when it's yellow, when it's not green, then it's very ripe. And it's beautiful. I love Carignan when it's made in an elegant way. But it's true that it had a bad reputation. I think you're doing a great job to change the reputation of Carignan.
Yeah, we love Carignan, actually. We didn't discover Carignan until we came to the Languedoc to buy a vineyard, and then we started to, come across winemakers who made Carignan cuvées, and we thought, yeah. And one of the advantages, or one of the things which caught us, how should I say, we fell in love with our vineyard was the fact that there were 2 or 3 parcels of lovely old Carignan Noir vines. So the one just behind you is Carignan Noir and Gabriel there.
Do your white wines do a malolactic fermentation or not?
No, we normally stop it, although in the barrel it often does it. So it's sort of part malo, yeah.
So if it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yes, yeah.
But you rather it didn't?
I think so, because we do like to preserve the freshness.
Yes.
And Drew, do you know the wines of the estate? Have you tasted the wines?
We just clicked on mute.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do, yes. Unfortunately, we don't have any to taste today, but they're on their way, I hope.
Their wine,
They will
hunting
be
wines are
soon.
on the way. Yeah, yeah.
And which which white is your favorite?
All of them.
All. Two.
We were talking about Carignan, so I'm opening the Trois Terrasses.
Okay, let's try it. Shall we try that next? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry for the noise of the pop.
Yeah.
Good sound.
Mine's already open. So Rosemary and I got 2018. We've got the vintage 2018, which is the vintage which the wine funders will be receiving this year, or some have already received it. And here's, we know the main variety is Black Carignan Noir. So lovely old vines. We've got 4 blocks of old Carignan. 3 of them are all next to each other. The vines are between 55 and 75 years old now. And then we blend in a little bit of Grenache and a little Syrah to help with the roundness and the fruit expression. No barrel aging. We keep this strictly away from oak.
This is the position, sorry. The Trois Terrasses. Coming from the vineyard that we saw earlier in the picture. Excellent. So, can you tell us about this one, Deborah?
Yep, so hand-picked harvest 2018. We pick each variety separately, obviously because they ripen up at different dates, and then the wines are blended a couple of months after the harvest. This one is actually aged not at all in barrels, but spends time in a concrete tank.
This is
and then, there we go. There's some of our harvest days from
hand-picking
a couple of years ago, and we bottled this one in May last year, so it's had a good year in bottle. Time to age a little bit in bottle, and in the expression, I think, of Carignan is a lovely, lovely notes. You get lovely notes of brambly fruit, blackberries, and some black currants, some wild herbs.
It was the freshness too of Carignan.
Yeah.
The fact that it is a red variety with quite a lot of acidity really makes it, it works well in the south.
Definitely. It's a Mediterranean variety, and it copes with most of the extremes of climate we've had in the last few years, the heat or...
What was the vintage to 2018? What was it?
2018.
What was the vintage like?
What was it like? Well, that was early in the spring was horrible. It was very, very wet and we had bad mildew, but the Carignan wasn't too badly affected, actually. The Carignan Noir was okay. And after that, it did clear up, and then the summer was really quite dry. But there was plenty of water in the soil. The vines didn't get dehydrated, so we had a nice crop, sort of average yields, which for us are quite low, so we get a nice concentration of the fruit. And then we would have picked these grapes in probably the first and second weeks of September in 2018. The Carignan towards the end, the sort of middle of September. The Syrah a little bit earlier.
And when was it quite a late harvest for you? Or?
No, 2018, if I remember correctly, was kind of average, insofar as there's an average, which would mean starting around the 1st of September for the whites, and then finishing with Carignan around the 15th to 20th of September.
And
this year, however, it's looking very early, so...
That's what everybody's saying. Everybody's saying that the 2020 would be a very early vintage.
I know.
How many days do you have ahead of previous years in terms of now the flowering?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here we're looking. People are saying we have to be ready from the 20th of August.
Gosh.
So, which is, as you know, Rosemary, that is early for us. So yeah.
You're going to take holiday. You have to take holidays early this year.
Yeah. I don't know where we're going to go there.
Where can you go? Well, you can go.
Do a staycation.
Yes.
I think this is a very nice wine because it's fresh.
Yeah.
And when you drink it, you want to have more, which is always nice. Reasonably, of course. But that's what I like about this wine, is that it's not always that we have this feeling in the mouth on a red wine. it's got some salinity in a sense that it makes you salivate, and that's what I mean when you want to have more. It's because it doesn't give you a heavy feeling after you put it in your mouth. It makes you salivate, and you just want to enjoy more.
Yeah,
Do you agree with me, Rosemary?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's this kind of sapidity. Yes, it makes you want more because it finishes fresh, and Carignan does that. That's part of its charm. Whereas sometimes I think Syrah, Syrah dominant wines from the Languedoc can just be a bit too heavy because they're a bit too ripe, and Syrah's not necessarily in the best place in the Languedoc.
I think this is a fantastic example of a nice way of making Carignan to make it more friendly. Definitely. This one can be, I think it can be drunk in its young age now, and probably for the next few years. But it's very present already now.
Yeah. No, I mean, in its youth, you've got that fantastic fruit and freshness, and you can equally keep it for a few years.
But you did that wonderful vertical tasting of 10 vintages.
Indeed, we should talk about our Carignan tasting.
Prove the point. For the whites as well as the reds, they age fantastically.
Yeah.
It's true.
So when we had our 10th anniversary back in 2016, we invited Rosemary and a few other wine journalists and writers, a couple of very good friends who are also winemakers, to a Carignan vertical tasting.
Mm-hmm.
And we had first bottles of Carignan Blanc and Les Trois Terrasses. And the older wines some of them had aged fantastically well, hadn't they, Rosemary?
They really had. You can read all about it on my blog.
Yeah. So in 2016 we had I'm still not used to Zoom, and I talk too much. I was just going to say, as an example of the length of time you can keep this wine, in 2016 we had a 2009. And it just tasted fantastic. Right. You can, if it's a good vintage of Carignan, it's definitely got some aging potential.
Definitely, yeah. And can you tell us about? I think we mentioned earlier before we started an event that's going to happen in the Appellation Pézenas. Can you explain to us?
Yes, yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah. This one. Okay, so this is called Le Canapé Tour, the Terroir Pézenas. So we saw on the map earlier how we're right in the heart of the Pézenas appellation, and our next wine is in the appellation. In fact, this wine is too, but with a story of Carignan and the very complicated French rules. It's not labelled Terroir Pézenas, but the next wine is. And this summer, because so many tastings and summer events, we've had to cancel them all, obviously, due to the virus. So as a new idea, we have come up with the Canapé Tour. 18 domains are participating, and it's on the website of Languedoc-AOC.com. Basically, you choose, we've divided into 3 groups of 6 domains. You buy a case of 6 wines, and every week, starting from next week, but it's a rolling program, so you can catch up quite easily. We'll be doing some Zoom tastings of the Pézenas wines. So it's a way to discover Pézenas and compare, for example, our Pézenas wine with some others, or try some completely new domains. And
anyone can register for the tasting. They will receive a mixed case of different wine estates.
Yes. The idea is you go online to the AOC Languedoc website and select which package you would like, which will be 6 different Pézenas wines from 6 different estates. So we're only in one of the boxes. There's 18 estates altogether. And then we've got a program over the next 8 weeks of tastings on about 5 nights of every week. So you can dip in and out. You can open your bottle with the appropriate vigneron. So let's say in 2 weeks' time, it's me with Clos de Lièvre. You open your Clos de Lièvre and we can, you meet me. Well, you've met me now, but you meet me again, and I introduce Pézenas and talk about the Clos de Lièvre. And then a few days later, it will be another winemaker with their Pézenas wine. and you can discover Pézenas that way.
So what's the website for that then, Deborah? Is that AOC Languedoc?
Languedoc, no, Languedoc AOC.com.
Okay.
And that's, I think, from the site. So it's called Le Canapé Tour, which incidentally is a little French word play, because canapé, as in English, the canopy is the vegetation of the vines. Yeah. And then canapé is also your sofa. It's your sofa. So it's we've
you're going onto the site now.
Someone's Googling
okay.
it. Oh, okay. You should see it on the main.
Okay, well, we'll find that.
We'll find that.
So will they deliver the wines to the UK?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could choose 6 completely different Languedoc boxes, wines. Yeah. Definitely.
I think Anastasia will send you the URL via the chat, so that you can go and have a look at it. I think it's a great way to discover different wine estates.
No, other appellations doing it as well. Do you know?
Doing it?
Well, down here, no Rosemary, because we have.
Yeah, I mean, like, others is Fougère doing it, or
not in that sense. No, that was our very own idea, actually, which we got up and running. I mean, I think lots of wine appellations are doing other events, either virtual ones. And as the year goes on, I know things might take off again if we're allowed to do bigger tastings. But I think, we're all trying to do what we can to keep our wines, in people's minds. And because it's obviously been so difficult for everybody.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. But that one's specific to Pézenas. So, at the moment,
We'll look out for that. We'll join you again.
Fantastic.
I think I found it. I think here, can you see my screen?
There we go.
It's Canapé Tour. You can see the URL here. It's Languedoc, I'll say. I think. Thank you. Anastasia sent it to us via the chat. If you can check on the chat, and we will email you. After the session, we will email you the details. If you want to buy wine from Mas Gabriel, you can do it on wine funding. We take no commission on the wine sales. And you can also register to this event. And the booking for this event is online here. And you can see that there are 18 estates who will take us on their... It's quite interesting. I think it's a great way to experience. So you have different estates here.
Yeah, absolutely. All within the Pézenas appellation, and you've got different circuits. So we've gone. There's quite a lot of domains in Co, our village, which sort of them, if you like, almost the main village, because we're the most numerous in terms of domains. We've mixed up the villages every time as much as possible to give a good variety of the different areas within the appellation.
Here you are. Here you are.
We're in that box. Yep, there we go.
Gabriel, Claude Elièvre, 20.
There we are, in the third one.
Excellent. So that's good. I think it's a great idea, and it's nice to see this type of initiatives that are collaborative, because all these wine estates ultimately they are not really competing. They should try to work more together, and this type of initiative I think is very positive in terms of collaboration and what it can bring to the appellation in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we're all we work very nicely together. Actually, we're all. It's not competitive, as you say. We're quite a friendly bunch.
I think the feeling is of friendly people. You can see it. I mean, they're happy. They live in a beautiful place, surrounded by beautiful vineyards. So can't complain.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Life under lockdown we couldn't have been in a better place for the lockdown.
Yeah, it's not that bad. Yeah. So shall we move to the last one?
The Pézenas one. So we've got the Claude Elièvre. Yeah.
I'm not going to open this one because we are only the 4 of us in the office tonight.
Okay.
So I will just use this Coravin that we use to actually drink the wine without opening the bottle. So you see that there's a needle. You just need to put the needle in there. So it allows to drink the wine without, we often use it. It's quite convenient. And then we can have a small quantity and use the rest.
Wow.
We have an offer. We will send you via the email an offer to buy this device if you're interested. It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So we are here. We are with Claude Lièvre. Let me switch to the. Sorry, where am I now? The last wine we're tasting. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
It's got 75. Oh, there's some splashes of wine. Sorry, on my screen. Where is it now? Yeah, 75% Syrah, 25% Grenache.
Yeah, there we go. So
different vintage.
And 2017. So that was a lovely vintage, nicely balanced, no hot, of course, but it was one of the nicest recent vintages. We'd had a little bit of frost earlier in the year, but not at all on the Reds and Co. So they were in very, very good condition that year. And the Syrah, we've got 2 blocks of Syrah, which are on our terraces. The very top Syrah, the vines are now 25 years old. And interestingly, I mean, we bought those obviously as a working vineyard. They were planted by the previous owner and they were selection Massal vines as well.
Right.
And then for our second parcel of Syrah, we, at that time, we took cuttings from our top Syrah, which the nursery grafted. So our second parcel of Syrah is also Massal selection.
Do you have the wine with you, Rosemary?
Sorry?
Do you have the wine, this wine?
I do indeed have the wine with me, yes. I think they're a very interesting comparison or contrast. I mean, I think to me the Syrah is much riper and richer. It's and also the fact it's been in a barrel. There's more sort of texture and body. But some good fruit, good fruit. Some peppery notes that you get with Syrah, balanced with the ripeness of the Grenache. But I think I have to say, I have a petit faible for les trois terrasses, and I love the freshness that you get with the Carignan.
Yeah.
This is kind of more in contrast. It's more opulent.
Yeah, probably this Claude Lièvre with the more of Syrah is probably better to accompany food with food.
Yeah. Yes.
Trois terrasses can be drank more easily in informal setting with aperitivo, but definitely Claude Lièvre is a meal wine.
Yes.
You want something quite full to handle wine.
Bring on the dough or something.
What I find very interesting is that at the beginning I didn't feel it, but now I've got it more in the retro olfaction, is the smell of violet flowers.
Quite perfumed actually, and black fruit, black cherries and perfume.
Yeah, black cherry and all this, like you said, and even vanilla at the first nose. But what's coming after, and it's more discreet, is a little bit of violet, which is typical from Syrah.
Syrah, yeah.
And it's very discreet, but we get, and I think this type of wine is evolving during the dinner time when you drink it, and it's changing and it's telling a different story every time you put your.
It's what the Italians call il vino de meditazione. You know, it's kind of wine to sort of to think about.
Yeah, don't rush
meditate over.
And this has obviously got a lot of aging potential, and we found the older vintages you get fabulous slightly menthol notes coming, the garrigue and more floral, and what is it we usually find? Yeah, kind of really the herby notes and the floral notes coming through as the wine ages.
Which brings it a lot of freshness, because for a wine with what I love about this wine is that there's a good balance between its concentration, it's full-bodied wine, but it's still fresh. It's not heavy. It's not heavy like you can't drink anymore.
No,
it's still fresh.
You can finish the bottle quite easily. No problem.
Well, I do agree. It's definitely a food wine. For me, I struggle to drink. Frankly, I struggle to drink a glass of that by itself. For me, that's definitely a food wine. Whereas, as Maxime says, Trois Terrasses, lovely.
Yes, you can sit there.
You want a glass of red wine, as Aperol or whatever. But this one is definitely a wine for a big meal.
Gotta have food.
Yeah.
No, it's a lovely wine, and it's a great wine that can also evolve over the years. I think it's good if you have a case of this wine. You can drink a bottle now, this year, and wait a few years and eat and drink each bottle every year or 2 years, and it will be a different wine, I'm sure.
Definitely,
So
definitely.
these are the 3 wines that we tasted. Maybe, can you see my screen? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Maybe, Rosemary, you can tell us about the books that you wrote. Here we have a selection, of course, this wine of Languedoc and other regions.
Yes. Well, so I'm currently working on the wines of Roussillon. I'm rather intrigued to see this cover because this is the first time I've seen the potential cover. And I was actually in the middle of what would have been my last research trip there when your president closed all the restaurants and cafes. So I thought I'd better filer à l'anglaise and quickly return to London before France went into total lockdown. So I'm now waiting to get back to France to try and finish the work.
Well, we have a quarantine in France, I'm sorry. We have quarantine for English people in France.
I know. Please don't rub it in. And then Chablis was my sort of first love as far as writing books, because my very first book was published in 1984 on the wines of Chablis. Okay. So then 25 years on, I wrote an update, Chablis Relouqué, talking about the children of the people in the first book. And this one was published last year. And quite a lot of the wine growers in that book are the grandchildren of the people in the very first book. And there's even one great-grandchild, which rather sort of threw me. So then the wines of Fougères, because we're in Rougon, so Fougères is 2 villages up the road. And I'd had a sort of bit of a gap in writing books and thought there is a book to be written about Fougères as one of the most interesting individual appellations of the whole of the Languedoc. And then having written that, I thought, well, I'd really like to write more about the whole region of the Languedoc. But I've really kept with that to the Languedoc. I didn't want to include Roussillon with it. So it is very much from, Cabadès, Malpère, through to the vineyards, to the other side of, or towards Nîmes. So it's taking in includes Pézenas and Pic Saint-Loup, and taking up to the Rhone Valley. So it's
excellent. And you have this book only in English, or is it translated?
Only in English. You try getting French publishers to consider books in English. And that comment is reciprocal. I know one of my fellow master of wine who'd love to get his book on wine growers translated into English. He's French, and no, it doesn't work.
Wow, that's great. And I think the region of Languedoc is getting more attention from international wine matters.
So, because I mean, there's so much happening there. I mean, it's the different grape varieties, the rediscovery of old established grape varieties, the new people coming to the area. You feel it's a really lively, energetic area, and there is so much still to discover. I find each vintage brings something new.
It's true. I think it's a great timing to publish a wine about Languedoc, because there's so much happening in this region. People are more, there's more freedom than in other regions to try and to experiment and to do what we call retro innovation, because bringing back Carignan to fermentation is something quite that wine growers would not have expected 20 years ago.
Yes, I look actually an earlier book was the wines of the south of France, which I would call from Banyuls to Billy, so Spanish border to the Italian border. And I was looking back at what I'd written about, what people had said to me about Carignan. This book was published in 2001. The difference, 20 years on, the attitude. There were growers in Corbière saying, oh, well, we've got rather a lot of Carignan, but we don't like it very much and we want to get rid of it. Now, of course, the average grower in Corbière thinks, well, Carignan's the best thing, it's the iconic grape variety of the appellation. It's sort of mind change, which is very, very exciting.
Quite true. Excellent. So I think we've covered the different topics. Maybe we have some questions from the people attending. You can ask your questions via the chat, or you can take the microphone, switch it on, and if you have questions, maybe. Andrew, yeah?
So just what you just said, Rosemary, about the Carignan grapes, the difference between 20 years ago, what's changed? Is it our taste that's changed, or have has the grape changed, or the way it's being made?
I think people understand it. The trouble was that, so let's go back even 40 years ago, when I first went to the Languedoc in the mid-80s, the yields were very much higher, and Carignan is a great variety that if the yield is too high, the wines are pretty thin and dilute. So I think, viticulture has changed, so people have understood how to look after Carignan in the vineyard. They understand the value of old Carignan. So in Roussillon, even more than the Languedoc, you will find plots of Carignan that were planted before the cadastre were done. So it's about 1900, but they don't know exactly. And then I think that, work in the cellar is very much better. So Carignan is treated, it's handled in a much more gentle way. And that, that therefore brings out sort of better flavours. So
it's really then for the specialist sort of vineyards and the smaller producers, rather than someone that wants to produce lots of wine and harvest it.
But I think the tendency of producing lots of wine, that's disappearing. I think the European wine lake is a thing of the past. I think generally, even for your average village co-op, that yields have become more restrained. I think the co-ops encourage their members. They give them extra bonuses for better viticulture, better quality of grapes. They're not, it's not just they're no longer being paid purely by the quantity of grapes they're delivering.
It's true.
Quality now is looked at as well.
You were mentioning about the Carignan in Europe. What about in other countries? I see we have Rodrigo with us. Can you tell us about what Carignan? Rodrigo is from Chile.
Yes, Carignan, the old the Vino project.
Yeah, and what about Carignan in Chile, Rodrigo?
Wow, the Carignan in Chile, it's maybe close to the Spanish style, because Carignan is an easy wine for me. It's easy to drink, not too high alcohol, and very velvet, nice tannins. And in Chile, we used to have that in Secano, the dry, close to the coast, the dry sector, we don't irrigate the vines there. And so you have low yield, you have better concentration, and it's very sunny, a lot of sunny days, and the wine's still fresh and not too much alcohol. But I think
Carignan, you have a lot of Carignan that is bottled single variety in Chile, or is it quite rare?
No at all. It's quite new now. We have old vines, but it's used to be blended with other varieties to do cheaper wines. And even to decrease the alcohol of Grenache or these kind of varieties.
Same fashion? Do you see the same fashion that Carignan is coming back into fashion? Yeah. Do you already see that in Chile?
Yeah, we are seeing that more tiny viticultures. Some new winemakers are looking for do something different, because Chile is mainly Cabernet Sauvignon. Okay. So
it's interesting to see that Carignan is also coming back into fashion, or people trying to experiment new things also in Chile.
How are we assessing what they've already got?
Sorry?
I think of Chile, they're reassessing what they've already got. There are a lot of plantings, well, not a lot, but there are plantings of old Carignan. The people, was telling me, oh, well, we'll pull it up. No, stop, don't pull it up. It's actually going to produce some very good wine. I was in Chile last November, and we went down, we had a day in Itata, which is an area very much of tiny wine growers. And they've got a lot of Carignan and Cinsault, and it was fascinating. It was wonderful. Really, it's a very good wine.
Yeah, they're very gentle.
It's kind of similar. It's
nice.
similar to what's happened in France.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I think we had also It was not a question in the chat, but we had someone saying that it was a great initiative to organize this collaborative canapé tour. So Alina was saying that she was quite happy. Maybe you will, Alina, you will join the canapé tour. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
We have any other questions? Someone? I think we will send you the details about the website where you can register for the canapé tour, where you can also buy the wines from Mas Gabriel. You will be able to set up a simple way to do it on wine funding. You can do it, and maybe if you don't mind, Rosemary, we can give the details of your books.
Absolutely. Well, it's a website either via Amazon or the publisher's Infinite Ideas. And then my blog is www.tastelanguedoc.blogspot.com.
Yeah, excellent. I think we will.
If you Google me to come up.
We will send all these details to the participants. Thank you very much, everyone. And I hope you enjoyed this time. And if you have more questions later, feel free to email us, and we will ask Deborah and Rosemary to respond to you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Very good. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.